Mike McCool here in the Royal Examiner studio, and with me today is Adriana Stollard. She's an author from Strasbourg,
yes,
and she's written this book here called, Mark, you can zoom in on there, Abigail's Journey. All right. This is a story, literally a journey you've gone through for the last few years.
yes.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about what your book is about? And, well, we know it's about your daughter, so let's go ahead and start at the beginning and tell us what, how it started and how it's ending.
Yeah, so Abigail, I became pregnant with Abigail sometime in 2022. So we have a 3-year-old son, my husband and I, and we had infertility treatment for my son, so we thought we were going to have infertility for another child. I happily got pregnant with no treatment, so I was very happy about that. But once I got pregnant, pretty early on in my pregnancy, I started to have a lot of issues with my pregnancy. I would lose a lot of weight. I started to have early contractions early on, and she was measuring very small from the beginning. So we were always on alert, what's going on with this baby.
Sure.
So I went to different specialties, and it was always very negative news. Oh well, she has this syndrome, then she has this one, and then I actually went to a maternal fetal specialist in Winchester when I was about 14 weeks along, and she told me that I should abort the baby. And at that point, I was like, I'm not going to abort a baby because you can't tell me for sure if this baby's going to have this syndrome or the other one. She's still way too small. So we decided to go to a different maternal fetal specialist in Northern Virginia. And with that maternal fetal specialist, he gave me more hope, and he's like, I wouldn't, just abort a baby just because, and I'm a Christian, so I don't believe in abortion. That's just my personal stand on that. But, so we were, like I said, we went to different specialists. We ended up at Children's National in D.C. We ended up in Fairfax. We ended up in Hopkins. And originally I was going to deliver at Johns Hopkins. Just because we knew she was very little and she had a very small recessed jaw. So we knew she needed to have some kind of airway intervention when she was born. So we wanted her to be at a level 4 NICU, which is usually your Johns Hopkins or UVA.
Sure.
So I had my first appointment with Johns Hopkins when I was, I think, 22 weeks along. And I loved the place. I loved the hospital, doctors. But on the way back, I started bleeding. So I ended up at Fairfax at that point. And when I got to Fairfax, they called Hopkins. And Hopkins didn't have a bed available for me. So I was airlifted to UVA. So that was interesting.
So you went from close around the circle to get back to where...
Yeah. Yep. So I was airlifted to UVA, terrifying, because like I said, they couldn't get the bleeding to stop. I was only 23, 24 weeks along, so it was pretty early on. And I liked the care that UVA provided for me, and I just decided to stay at UVA.
Sure.
So when I was about 34 weeks along, I had another incident where I really started to bleed more. And it was getting closer to that 37 mark, so I went to Fairfax again. And they airlifted me to UVA. So I was airlifted twice with her.
That's frightening in itself.
Oh, it was terrifying. It was terrifying. And when I was airlifted the second time, I had full-on contractions every minute. So I didn't even know if I was going to make it to the hospital at that point. Because when you're in a small helicopter, you feel everything, and I was panicking. And the pain was unbearable.
And they say, where were you born at? I was born somewhere up in the sky.
So... Yeah, so at that point, UVA decided to keep me, just because at any point she was going to be born.
Right, any moment.
Yeah, and I was already dilating. But it's interesting how she was born because, I was, like I said, in the middle of the night, I was airlifted to UVA. My husband obviously didn't go because he couldn't get in a helicopter, and he was 2 a.m., I think. So he drove to UVA the following morning, so he met me there. And I told him that morning, I'm like, she's going to be born today. I'm like, there's no way that, they're not going to take her out today, or I'm just not going to dilate to 10 centimeters.
Sure.
So the doctor was like, no, you're only 3 centimeters dilated.
Yeah,
so
I've heard that. My wife had the same thing. That baby's going to be born today. Well, you haven't even dilated yet. Yeah. Trust me, 30 minutes later it's born.
Yeah, so. Yeah. So the whole day went on. My contractions kept getting worse. My pain kept getting worse. And they didn't want to stop it at that point. So I just kind of went in pain, and obviously they would give me like really strong pain medicine and
Sure,
stuff.
sure.
And that night, I sent my husband home. I'm like, just go home, bring me some stuff. Come tomorrow morning. We'll just go from there because supposedly they were not going to take her out.
Sure.
Well, no later, he left like at 8 p.m., like 10:30 at night. They went to give me another dose of strong medicine because I asked for it, and it did not work. And the pain just got worse. I'm very germophobic, and I got on the hospital floor, and I rolled side to side, and I got on the bed, and I just did who knows what I did to try to find comfort.
Right.
And like around 11:30 at night, I had this urge to like go to the bathroom, and I'm like, this is it. I know this is it. And like the pain I was in, it was like an elephant was walking on me. I had never been in that kind of pain. I thought I was in pain before. This is a new kind of pain I'm talking about. And so I went to the restaurant. I don't know how I made it to the restaurant, but I pulled, how like they have that emergency cord you can pull.
Sure.
I pulled it, and like a group of doctors came rushing in, and they, I guess, picked me up and took me to the bed to check me. At that point, I was 10 centimeters dilated. And then at that point, it was an emergency, you know?
Sure.
So I was, so they rushed me to the OR, because she was pretty much like coming out, and she was breached, so I couldn't really have her naturally either.
Right.
And I didn't want to have her naturally just because we knew she had some kind of airway obstruction, so it was going to be very dangerous if I had her naturally. But, yeah, so I was rushed to the OR. It took an hour for them to take her out because we had to wait for, like, the NICU team to come, ENT, the whole crew. There was 50 people in the OR room that night with me. And the pain was unbearable. It got to a point where I told the anesthesiologist just to knock me out. Like, just knock me out. I'm in too much pain. Like, if I miss it, I miss it. I'm here by myself anyway. My husband was, I called him, but he was, we were 2 hours away. So he wasn't going to make it. So I had her alone, and the moment they took her out, she was blue. I didn't hear her cry. It was terrifying. At that point, the neonatal team had come in, and they, I guess, started her, like, giving oxygen, and so she came. But I never saw her. They just kind of lifted her up, boop, and they took her.
They do that, yeah. So, what was the condition?
So, it's called 22q duplication. I found out I had it, that I have the syndrome when I was about 25, 26 weeks along with her. So they did like a general syndrome, I guess, blood test, and nothing came back. Then they did a more, like, I guess, specific test, and the 22q duplication came back. So since I had it, the most likely she was going to have it too.
Sure.
Yeah, that's why her jaw was really pushed back. Yeah, so like I said, she was born April 14th, so she's had a birthday. She turned 2 this past Sunday.
Okay.
It was interesting because it's also her wedding anniversary. So she was born on her wedding anniversary. So that's kind of cool in itself. But like I said, she was taken to NICU just for airway issues. NICU was able to stabilize her. She was without any kind of respiratory support for a couple of days, and it just kind of started going downhill. Even with the respiratory support, it just went downhill. But the reason why her jaw is so pushed back is, and that's one of the main reasons I wrote the book, is because she's missing a bone in her right side of the jaw. It's called the condyle bone, and that is the bone responsible for the growth of the jaw. And at that point, the plastic surgeon told us that there was no surgery that could be done at that point until she was like 5 or 6. And at that point, they would take a piece of her rib and make a jawbone.
Yeah.
But, to me, it's a miracle. So, like I said, she was in the NICU close to 4 months. She got released July 5th of 2022. And then we went back that December of 2022. And she had a MRI, and some of that bone had started to grow. And at that point, I didn't know until the surgeon called me like 10 minutes after I left the hospital. And he said, I have really good news for you. I'm like, what is it? And he said, you're not going to believe what I have to tell you, but some of that bone is starting to grow. And he's like, if this bone even grows a little bit more, I'm going to be able to do the surgery. And he's like, this will be the first surgery ever performed worldwide. And I was like, okay. So, I was excited but also nervous. And then we just so last March of 2023, she had her first jaw surgery with her actual bone. She doesn't have the full bone, but a little bit of grew. So he was able to put it's called a distraction device. It's plates, and a rod comes out. So the first surgery she had done last year was just on her right side, and a rod came out, like by her head. And all you do is you turn that little rod.
It just moves the jaw out.
Forward.
Yeah.
And, you turn
it grows, and you turn a little more. Yeah. Yeah, I've seen they do that for a lot of bones and
really.
things. Yeah, for your arms and legs. People have. Yeah, it's kind of creepy, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, and I had to do it too. So.
Then they ask you to do it.
Yeah, that's sickening. Ooh. But yeah, so you just move the rod twice a day, and it just kind of the bone starts to grow.
Yeah.
But so because of her jaw, because her jaw is so small, she has a trach, because her tongue falls backwards.
Sure.
So that was a very scary journey for us having her have the trach, because a trach, to me now it's not terrifying. It's just a natural thing, But when she first had it, my husband and I did like a lot of classes for her, how to deal with it, how to detect emergencies and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And at first it was very overwhelming. So I think within that, we've had our own shares of our faith being tested in different ways. Our marriage was tested too through it all, because sometimes we didn't agree, on what we wanted, the doctors to do for Abigail. But ultimately, I feel like God has brought us to this point. This past March, last month, she had her second jaw extraction. But this time she had it on both sides. Her left side grows normally, but ENT and the plastic surgeon decided that if she would do it on both sides, that her airway would just be brought out straight forward instead of spiraling.
Right.
So this one was pretty intense. Like I said, it was for both sides. And on the right side, they brought it out 30 millimeters, and on the left side, 20 millimeters. So for a kid, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It always sounds so small until you see it on a...
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
So here in a couple of weeks, at the end of May, ENT will look at her airway to see if her airways open up enough, and if it is, and sometime in summer, hopefully, she'll have the trach removed. And we're hoping, we're praying for that, because there's not really any more surgeries that the surgeon can do for her jaw, So we are praying for a miracle, and I trust, a miracle will happen.
You've had several already.
Yeah. And I know, many people say, "Oh, well, just trust in God," but I feel like when your faith is tested, it's not always easy to trust in God.
Right.
I mean, like I said, we've had moments where we haven't trusted. We've asked the why. What are we doing?
Sure.
Why she?
What did I do? What did I do?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. It's always like, what did I do? Where did I go wrong? But I've learned through this journey, and I'm sure my husband has learned it through it. But that I think a lot of times our faith has to be tested, so that way we see how powerful our God is, And like I said, right now we're just praying for a miracle, and I trust that miracle will happen. She's off the ventilator now 24/7, so that's a good thing.
Sure.
She actually had an appointment yesterday with her pulmonology, and her pulmonologist said, from my standpoint of view, whenever ENT wants to take the trach out, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like I said, so we go to UVA at least once a week. So it's a 2-hour drive and 2 hours back. So it's pretty much a whole day. I'm a stay-at-home mom because of that. So I take care of my son.
And I say, how does he adapt to all this? Because sometimes, he's getting left behind.
Yes, yeah. So at the beginning, when she was in the NICU, we stayed up in Charlottesville, and it was hard because there was moments when he was with different family members, and he didn't always see my husband, or he didn't always see me.
And they don't understand at that young age. Yeah.
Yeah. So when we came back home, we started to see some kind of behavioral issues because of that, which is a natural response, because he didn't know what's going on.
Look at me.
Yeah.
Wait. What about me? Right. Yeah. That's what they do.
Yeah. So I think now we're at a point where he understands, and he plays with her, because like I said, when she first came home,
Well, now he's got a little sister.
Yeah, he didn't want anything to do with her.
Right.
So now he loves her. It's like, where's Abigail? Where's Abigail?
Right.
So,
well, you can see the picture on this front. It's amazing how kids adapt.
Yeah.
They don't know any different, and they just accept whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she
seems like a happy little girl.
She is. She's also deaf, so her ear canal is never developed. So she wears a special hearing aid. It's called a Baja. It's a bone conduction hearing aid.
Yes.
So it's like a headband that goes right in her forehead. And when she wears it, she hears perfectly fine, you know. So I'm not 100% sure that we'll do the surgery, because that surgery to open up her ear canal, that we have to open her brain, you know, and do nerve stuff. And I'm not really sure if we really want to do that. But there is a surgery that we are thinking we'll most likely do. It's more of a permanent hearing aid. It's just like a magnetic thing. It goes behind her ear.
Right.
But that's not until she's 5 or 6.
Right.
So I think this summer her next big thing is a surgery coming up. Obviously, look at her airway, I think in May, but sometime in July she'll have the device removed. And she'll have her cleft palate repaired. She has a really big cleft palate, so she doesn't eat a lot by mouth. She's G-tube fed, so she has a little tube in her stomach, so we feed her through it. But I feel like, one of the reasons I wrote this story is because I feel like a lot of times kids that have any kind of medical conditions I look down on, and like I said, I have the condition, you know, not as severe as her. I do have some hearing loss, which is why I have the speech impediment, but I feel like you can go so far in life. You know, I was able to go to school, to college, you know, and I had no idea until I was pregnant with her that I had this syndrome, you know, and I feel like kids with this condition, with any kind of condition, whether it's Down syndrome, whatever it is, can go so far in life. It's just how much are you willing to put into them.
Sure.
And that is something that my husband and I have promised, is we will put whatever we have into her, just like we will put whatever we have into Gunner, you know? But I just feel like I wish our society would just accept them more, you know, and just be more including of them, you know.
People are strange when everyone's a little different.
Yeah.
But I tell you, it shows you the power of your faith that you have, and you've written this book, and it's really Abigail's journey. So you've detailed all the things you've gone through. You're going to have some book signings coming up here in our area. Why don't you tell about that?
Yeah. So my first book signing will be April 27th on NQ at 1 p.m.
Okay.
I have two in May. I'm not exactly sure of the dates yet. I'm still working on it. One at Roll Oak Bookstore, and then the other one will be at Poppy's Sandwich Place.
Yes.
I'm also in the works of getting a book signing at Books A Million in Winchester and Barnes & Noble in Harrisonburg. I still have some in the works, but the main reason I wrote this book is because I want to share hope with other families that have kids like this. Sure. You know, I didn't necessarily write it like to be rich or nothing. You know, I'm not really looking for the money. I want to share hope, and I want to reach people that might be struggling in their faith, or might be struggling because they have a kid that is so complicated. Right. You know, Abigail is very complicated. And one of the reasons I wrote the book is because the surgeon encouraged me to. Just because she had like I said, the first surgery she had never been performed before in a child worldwide.
So here you got your kid going down in history already.
Yeah. So it's interesting, you know. And
she'll be telling her kids, look what Mommy did.
Yeah.
But you're right. I think sometimes people that have no hope need somebody to say, well, if she went through it, if Adriana went through it and Abigail went through it, my kid can do it too.
Yeah. We actually have a friend. She just had twins on this past Monday, and both the twins are in the NICU at VCU because UVA was overfull. But the twins are struggling, and I, through this journey, like I said, it's been hard. You know, a lot of breakdowns and just trusting and asking the why me, why this, why not. But I want to be an encouragement even to friends or family members that are going through something like that. So right now, I'm trying to be an encouragement to this friend that's going through that. You know, she has I think a 1-year-old son, and now these are the twins that were born Monday, and one of them is on ECMO. They're not sure she's going to make it. The other one's intubated, so she kind of goes up and down. But I just reached out to her and hope that I could be some kind of encouragement to her. Like I said, I feel like with the NICU, a lot of people don't understand until you've had somebody that in the NICU. And now she's understanding what I went through. Because I feel like when Abigail was in the NICU, I felt so lonely because I had no friends that had ever been through that. So there's not really somebody I could talk to and say, hey, I feel this way, or what about this,
Yeah, your faith is tested.
Yeah, it's definitely.
But God doesn't give us anything we can't handle.
Yep.
You got to
That's true.
keep telling yourself that, right?
Yeah.
You keep telling yourself that,
Yeah,
and you know what? The next day you say, "Well, okay, I got through that day. I got through that day. So let's tackle the next day."
Yeah.
And I think that's what our faith is about: is to give us hope.
Yeah.
And it's just a blessing that we have. It's great. So
Yeah, so
all life is precious.
Yeah.
And you're right, because you never know. Abigail's that person that's going to cure cancer or
Correct.
do something. We don't know.
Yeah.
There's so many, babies, millions of babies that have been aborted that we don't know. God said, "Well, I sent you the cure, but you that's the story you hear a lot."
Yeah.
But again, it's the way it is. We can't control it. Can't change it. And I think adapting and having hope is really something precious that we need to accept and look at there's always something positive.
Yes.
And I'm sure you've learned a lot of lessons on your journey.
And I will continue to learn lessons with her because, like I said, her journey doesn't end here. She still has surgeries coming up in the future, And I feel like we have learned to adapt, whether we wanted to or not. We had to, adapt quickly, And Gunnar had to adapt, too, because, he's not, now he's used to going to the doctor a lot, for Abigail.
Sure.
He's used to all her equipment. He's used to, now he'll take the stethoscope and put in her heart and check her,
Sure. Yeah.
And, and I think, it's unfair to him. He shouldn't have to do that. But,
But he's had an experience that no one else will have.
Correct.
And
And
so maybe he'll be a doctor.
Yeah, he loves doctor stuff. Every time we go to the doctor, he's like, let me do this.
Well, it sounds like you've had a journey. Let's just use that word.
Yeah.
And it won't stop yet. But I think you're getting through it. With God's help, you'll do it.
Yeah, and I just want to be an encouragement. That's really, my end goal is always to be an encouragement and shed that light on God. Because ultimately I wouldn't be here without God. There's moments where I've really struggled emotionally. Just like as a mom, because as a mom you carry that weight of your child.
Yeah.
So. And I'm sure, my husband, yesterday we were praying over our friend, like I said. And I can only imagine what she's feeling, this hopelessness that the NICU brings, and there's no amount of I'm sorry that's going to help you, I said. So we prayed over her last night. We prayed over the babies. And, I've always, and it's hard for me to say it, but I've always, with Abigail, because like I said, even now there's been situations where we've almost lost her, And I've always told my husband, I'm like, I want what God's will is for her, whether it's for her to be here or if it's for her to be heaven, And I know it's hard to talk about that, but ultimately I don't want her here if she's going to suffer, if there's not going to be any help for her. I'd rather her be in heaven where she can be whole and healed. And that's the prayer I have for my friend, that whatever God's will is for the twins, that it will happen, no matter how painful it can be, So, yeah.
That's what we have to do. Well, congratulations on your book.
Yeah.
And we'll encourage people to go. We'll put the links down in the story so people can go to your book signing. Get the
Adriana's.
A book, Abigail's Journey, and her experience and the hope that she has for her child.
Yeah, you can buy it obviously at the book signings, and you can also buy online, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, all kinds of stuff.
Well, we really appreciate you coming in and sharing this journey with us, okay?
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Keep us posted what's happening in the future. Okay,
Yep, thank you.